Isn't Neil Young just great, isn't he? He's got like this sound, it's like rock god. And I suppose partially it's his guitar and his amp, mostly it's him. I've seen him playing in Belgium, we had great tickets, and he was like stood there, you know, there, scary there, close. And could see his tiny little amp. He's got like this tiny little Fender Tweed Deluxe amp, and he's with his mate. He's made this metal box that he's got on the, you know, screwed on the top of it, and it's got all these servo end motors in it that are connected up to his volume and his tone. And from the stage, he presses his pedal board, and it turns the volume settings on his amp so he gets or a clean sound or a really distorted sound. And he called this unit the Whizzer. And you know, so they'll turn to his preset voodoo piece settings, and absolutely fantastic to watch him arse about with it. You know, it's great. And it sounds absolutely fantastic, and he just stood there playing effortlessly, and you could only admire the guy. And but I'd never forgot that amp, and I want one. So I was got this budget of $1,200 or so, and I thought, right, I'll get me Fender Deluxe Tweed amp 5E3. Right, welcome to the real world. You can't even get them anymore. And if you did find one that was half decent, it wasn't some like infested piece of wooden crap, you'd have to start paying from about $3,000, like. So that was like out of the question. No way I could afford that. But when I was fixing my Vox amp AC30, I stumbled upon a site called Tubeampdoctor, and they've got all the clones, all the Fender Tweed amps and the black faces. They've got the lot, and you can, then there it was, the 5E3. You can just get the original, you know, gubbins. And so I bought one, and it took about 2 days, and it's here from Germany to Holland. It was like 2 days, you got it. And I got the 12-inch, you can get I think a 10-inch cabinet for a 10-inch speaker, a cabinet for a 10-inch speaker, or I think a bit enlarged cabinet for the 12-inch speaker. And they're like tweed covered and lacquered cabinets, I think. And I couldn't, you know, be asked to you know, building a cabinet and covering it with tweed, and you'd never get it right, and it'd only irritate you that it wasn't right, and then you still got to lacquer it with nitro, and you build yourself 5 guitars by the time I got around that. So forget that. So I got the cabinet, the speaker, the chassis, the whole amp, the whole shebang, and so it's arrived. So we'll open it up and see if it's all there, and build us our own Neil Young 5E3 without the whizzer. Perhaps we could make a whizzer. Anyway, let's have a look at it. Oh! So when you open up the box, you find this sticker that you could put on the inside of the cabinet, which tells you the tube locations if you forget, and you could put the date on there, of course, of when you change the tube, so you know how long your tubes are lasting. You get a warning that the kit's only for experienced amp builders, and the voltages can exceed 500 volts and could kill you. If you can't finish the amp yourself, you can send it back to them and they'll finish it for you. You get the schematic, template of some holes you've got to drill yourself, wiring diagram, a reference for their nuts and bolts and where they go, plan of the mains transformer and output transformer and the windings and color codes. 4 pages of parts that you got to check, and then you get a rough guide of 31 steps of how to build it, but it's not a detailed step-by-step plan. You know, it just says wire everything up before you do this or that. And so we'll start with step number 1, which is unpack all material and check for completeness. Right, so I've unpacked it all, and the amp cabinet is absolutely immaculate. It's perfectly covered with tweed and sprayed with nitro. It's beautiful, leather handle and speaker, tubes, amp chassis. See if we can get in on that. The transformers, turret boards, all the parts and components and everything are all beautifully labelled, so you can, and coded, so you can easily find them on the parts list. All but one, that was the only discrepancy, was that one bag wasn't labelled. And sometimes these orange drop capacitors have weird codes on, so I measured to check, and it was the missing one that I couldn't find. So brilliant, and I'm glad I don't have to make the cabinet, because there's no way I could have got it as good as this. I'll just give you a bit of a close-up of it. The corners are, you know, it's perfect, absolutely perfect. So I'm pleased with everything. So that was step 1, checking all the bits, and it's all here. So on to step 2, and step 2 is drill the missing holes into the chassis. 2 times for the soldering strip, and 1 time sideways and centric on the side of the transformer for the cable holder. Well, let's do that. Right, so the second step is to drill a couple of holes in the amp chassis, one here and one at the side in the middle, and that's for a wire clamp for the wires off the transformer, mains transformer, and solder lug. So to drill holes in this metal chassis, I'm going to make a indentation with a punch first, so my drill bit doesn't wander. And to do that, I'm going to give it some support on the back while I hit the punch, so I don't dent the chassis, you know, with an anvil or something behind it. But to begin with, I'll mark it off, and it's easy to do that if you just put a bit of masking tape on, and then you can use pencil to just mark it. So it's 10 by 4, so by 4. So that's our first hole. So the second one is at the top, on one of the sides I should say, and it's just bang in the middle, and it's not, I don't think, that important, so I'm not gonna go mad about it. So we'll call that the middle. Now this is quite high, so it's quite difficult to get some support underneath here. So let's see. So I've put a big bolt in, and this is above the top of the bolt. So when I hit it with the punch, it doesn't bend this piece of metal. Right, so here goes. Put the punch on. Nice. And you end with a nice spot to start drilling, and your drill won't go bzzz. So now we'll do the other one. Right, to do the second one, I've found one of these, you know, I've got quite a few of these irons that I use as the old-fashioned irons that you used to heat up on the open hearth, you know, in the good old days, before my time. You know, they're just antique things, and some of them are quite heavy, and you can also use them as anvils. Like if you just turn them upside down, they're really nice to work with. So if you ever see any of these in a car boot sale, you know, get them. And the chassis will just fit over it. So this was our second hole that we had to make, drill. So we'll do the same technique, which is first you look for your hole, and you clobber it. And you've got yourself a nice indentation where you can drill. So your drill won't go walkabout. Now I'm just going to try and drill through it with this new drill. Seems like it's got a good footing. Oh, there you go. Perfect. Right, so we've got the 2 holes drilled in the chassis that we had to do, and so that's step 2. We're done with the chassis for a while, I think, now, so we'll put that back and we'll move on to step 3, Commence equipping the board. First the resistors, 1/2 watt, then power resistors, capacitors, and lastly the electrolytic capacitors. Pay attention to correct polarity. So that's that. We'll do that. This is the board, the turret board, and you get 2, and you might think, what's this one for? Without the holes in it. But this one, I'm figuring you put under, when you mount it in the chassis, you put this one on the bottom so you don't, as insulation, so you don't short out these connections. So we've got to fill this board now with the resistors and whatnot. So that's the next step, step 3.